Julia, let's start with you. When do you think the charities would have been alerted to such a superstorm like this coming towards the Philippines?
Well, we could see the storm developing a few days before it actually hit the Philippines. So there was time for the authorities to start evacuating people. And I know more than 100,000 were in fact evacuated to centres. But the severity of the storm took everybody by surprise, and that was the problem.
Norman, how accurate do you think were the forecasts? I mean, Julia was right, there was plenty of warning about it. Was it as accurate as it could have been?
It's very accurate, the weather forecast with all these satellite pictures as well. So the forecast by Joint Typhoon Warning Center 195 was so accurate, and even the location where it made the landfall and the depth of the storm surge, how much rainfall and the wind speed, etc. So that's why, the locals do have the information to evacuate the people.
So even though there were a lot of people evacuated,
yes,
there was sometimes there's just not much you can do in the face of such a severe storm. Would you agree, Norman?
No, I think they can do a lot in preparation. The thing is, over the area, I want to say is due to why this happened. Due to one thing is the poverty and deprivation. So the government did not, put the right emphasis on the resources. That is why, they could have done much in preparation for preparing for these hazards. It's not stranger to them. Every year, 20 cyclones, like this year, they had 4 Category 4 storms before, and this was the 5th Category 5 storms. So with preparation for, in addition to the weather forecast, they could do a lot on this software preparation to get the resources available.
Okay, let's talk about that in a bit more detail. But Julia, in terms of the response that you've seen in the crucial period, the first 24 and 48 hours, talk us through what's been happening on the ground as the storm passes over.
Well, we're very fortunate in that our partner on the ground, the Philippine Red Cross, was already there. They had 100 chapters throughout the country. They mobilised their volunteers, although we have to recognise that many of the volunteers were also affected
Did your building survive? Did your supplies survive?
Well, we do know the branch office in Tacloban that did not survive. And in fact, they've had to go to another building and set up their operation there. But the volunteers were actually able to make it to evacuation centres. They started doing search and rescue. They were providing first aid and triage. And where resources allowed, they were providing hot meals to people who had taken refuge in the evacuation centres.
And how are those stockpiles doing now? Because we hear from Peter there is a big bottleneck for aid coming in.
Yeah.
Is there enough?
Very often these stockpiles would only last for a few days, and then it's very dependent on either being able to access local markets to replenish or wait for assistance to come from further afield.
Now, Norman, we've got this extraordinary picture which was taken actually, I believe, by an astronaut on the International Space Station. He or she tweeted this picture of the typhoon, and I think it covers the entire country, doesn't it? I suppose it shows this was as you said, a superstorm. It's not your regular typhoon, but something that you haven't seen for a decade at least.
No, this is it. This super typhoon, the intensity of it, you got 195 miles per hour. So when it made the landfall, the second one was 1969 Hurricane Kamal in Mississippi, and the third one was 185 miles per hour, great Labor Day storm in Florida. But if we talk about this super typhoon over the open ocean, this one was actually the 4th in category, in the rank. There were another 3 super typhoons. 2 was in 1961, Cyclone Nancy, Cyclone Violet. They were at 215 and 205 miles per hour, respectively. And the third one was the Typhoon Ida. Both of them also hitting Japan in 1960s and 1958.
Now, Julia, I know that some people are already likening it in a not in a macabre way, but looking back at what's happened before and saying, does this remind us of the Asian tsunami some 9 years ago, the Boxing Day tsunami? Is that correct in your assessment? What do you think?
I think if we look at the pictures of devastation, it looks very, very similar. And if you see ships that have been washed from the sea and have landed ashore, definitely, we're reminded of the disaster in 2004. fortunately, the number of deaths will not be as high. We do know that. So yes, we in human cost, we're not looking at such a devastating disaster.
And Norman, if I can ask you this complicated question in yes or no, is it as a result of climate change? Yes or no?
What I said was like all these storms happened in 1960s, you know, so we can't associate this one storm to that.
Right.
My simple answer is no.